everybody, welcome back to an art lesson with Deborah Goley. I'm Deborah and I wanted to bring to you the art of watercolor, and we're going to do some landscapes for the next 4 weeks, so this will be one part of 4 lessons. And we're going to start out with something very simple today, and learning about the sky and the ground, and getting familiar with colors that would be found in the landscape. Before we get started, I'm going to talk to you about what we need. I have a piece of cardboard here and my actual 9 by 12 watercolor that's 140 pounds of paper, so it's pretty thick. And what I like to do is just turn it over and spritz it a little bit. Just give it one little spritz with my little water bottle here and rub the water over the surface of the paper just to prime one side. I'm going to flip it over in just a second. And while that's drying, I've got a couple of clips. I'm going to clip the paper to the board. And I'm going to set up my paints. I have a little rectangular well here. It's got room for mixing, and then I can put each of my colors in the little compartment so it doesn't run until I'm ready for it to run. You're going to need 4 brushes to start out with. This is a number 12 round, and I have a number 6 round. Round meaning it looks round on the end. This one's a flat brush, so it's flat. And it is a 1/2 inch, but you could use a 3/4, that's fine. Mine even has a fun little tip, a little wedge tip on the end that I could use to make some marks with on my paper. And then the 4th brush that we're going to be using today is called a rigger. So it's really long, skinny, that we can use for some fine lines and details. So it's pretty small. The colors that we're going to use today, so we're going to use the Algerian Crimson, and I've got some burnt sienna, and we've got some New Gamboge, which is your yellow, and for blue we've got some Philo Windsor blue will work just fine too. All 4 of these actually happen to be different manufacturer, different brands, and I like to use artist grade paint. This one not so much, but I just wanted you to show you can use whatever you have on hand. But if you're going to go order new, then the Windsor Newton or the Cotman will do just fine. I think you could also go with the Daler-Rowney and Holbein and Rembrandt's would all be good too. So I'm just going to take a spot of each of this and fill them into the wells. So I'm going to put a little of the Gamboge right there. I like to kind of keep my warm colors on one end and my cool colors on the other end. So I'll just put the blue down here. A little bit goes a long way. I can reactivate this even after I'm done today by adding, of course, water to it. It is watercolor. So I'm going to now put the little burnt sienna down here on the end. Okay, so these are the 4 colors that we needed to start with when doing landscapes. Obviously, if you have other colors like greens for landscapes, you're welcome to use them. We can create green though, however, with what we have with the blue and yellow. Okay, I'm going to turn this paper over now. I'm going to clip it onto the piece of cardboard. And it's nice if you can work at a slant. In other words, I need to give it a little bit of gravity, so if I could prop it up just a little bit, that's going to be very helpful. Okay, I think that's not going to slide anywhere, right? So if you have something you could put underneath it, like a couple of books or something, so that it's slanted a little bit more. So I happen to have this of my drafting weights that I'm going to stick underneath, and that gives it just a tad of a slant here. Okay, Now what we're going to do is find a pencil. School pencil will be fine. It should definitely be a 2H or an HB. I take the erasers off so I'm not tempted to erase anything. If you have a kneadable eraser or a gum eraser, that would be helpful too, to take away any lines that you do not want, because you will want to make sure that you don't scar your paper by putting on a mark that from your pink eraser or from the metal that's on the tip there. So this is a gum eraser. So if I have something that I want to get rid of, I can do that. Okay, so I chose something very simple today to look at, and now all we're going to do is block out the actual landforms that I see. So I see that about, let's say about a third of the way down, I have this beautiful mountain outside Pagosa Springs, Colorado, and I'm going to draw in that mountain chain. Might be hard for you to see on camera. I don't want to push too hard as I'm drawing because I don't want to see the lines or have to erase them later. Now I'm going to draw in the tree line on here, which lines up just where the mountains come in, and it dips just a little bit and comes back almost pretty straight across the page. All right, now the next thing I want to draw is the roof line. We're going to be working in silhouette today, so those roof lines, while they go up and down, are not going to be filled in, and we're not going to color them. I'm going to focus more on the land masses, how to stop the paint from flowing onto our roofs, into our houses. Okay, so there's a house here, and there is a house here. And these are just simple little rectangles with triangular roof surfaces on them. It's fun to add these architectural masses. You could use castles if you have, something to where it's in the middle ground. Now I have the water's edge, so I'm going to put in an embankment line here. And then if I'm so inclined, I might want to do the reflection. So that would, and you don't have to do that if you don't want to at this point. But it's just going to be the opposite of what I see there. And there's a roof here. And the opposite of the roof here. And there's a clump of trees here, there's a clump of trees here, that's the same clump of trees there, same there, there. Really, you're just what I call blocking in masses of objects. There's some trees here and a clump there, and of course one here on the end, and it's reflected into the water here. Okay, so I've got it all figured out, yes? Now, we are ready to paint. All right, see you back in just a second. All right, so we're ready to paint. I'm gonna make this really fun sky up here. A little bit, I put some of the crimson, some of the phthalo blue. Let's get a little more blue in there. Using my really big brush, going across the sky up here. I'll bring that into the plane. You see it's starting to run down because I do have it propped a little bit with my weights back here. Okay, so it's starting to run. If it's running too much for you, you can blot it with your sponge, or you can use paper towel. Okay, and I'm going to add just a tad more of the crimson to the blue as I get closer to those mountains. It's a little heavy there. I'll go right up to my line that I created for the mountains. Nice summery sky. This was taken in July. There's actually still a little bit of snow on those mountains. There's like a summer haze going on here. Okay, so I'm adding a little bit more in there on top. If you want to keep clouds, then you need to keep a little bit of the wet area, or you dab at it to try to lighten it. Okay, now I can take my flat brush with what's left in my palette here and just go up a little bit closer to those mountains. I'm going to be coming back later, so I don't want it to get such a dark line there. Okay, so I just dabbed at it. Okay. It's kind of bubbling up on me. I'm going to put an extra one. I usually like to have about 4 clips ready when I'm working. Okay, now I'm going to move to the mountains. And I think I could just keep with this big 12. Number 12 brush. Mountains are a little more intense. Snow capped up there. This is getting you used to the brush, what the wash can do for you. So don't be afraid to try your hand at the flat and the round brush. Deepening it a little bit along that horizon line. Okay, so now what I want to do is start to work on the tree area itself. So in this well over here, I'm going to mix up a nice green. So I'm going to take some of the new gamboge here and some of the blue. I'm going to get a nice olive green going. The more blue, the more grassy the green. Okay. Tiny bit of red into that because those trees are in the very distant, so they're more of a foresty green than the bright green. Oh, gotta move my clip. This is like that first layer that you put on. Okay, so now I've got that layer on. Okay, so I got a bunch of that foresty green still on my brush. And I know that it's going to be along the water's edge. So I'm going to put it down here along the water's edge. Yay! Can be pretty satisfying pretty quickly dealing with watercolors as opposed to a graphite drawing that takes a little bit longer, but it's not as forgiving, so you'll have to make some happy accidents if you don't like something. I like too that I've left some of those white areas by dabbing with my napkin. Okay, now what I'm going to do is put in some water down here, and then I'm going to come back and start working on those clumps of trees. So I'm going to go grab some saran wrap, and because we're going to need that for the water, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. I went and grabbed some saran mat wrap because we're going to need that in just a little bit. I like to use this on water areas. So what we're going to do is grab our palette again, and we're going to take a little bit of the blue. Right here, that's the blue. And some of the crimson. Oh, that was a lot of crimson. We'll put a little blue back in there, a lot more blue back in there. It's just a reflection of the sky, so I really kind of want to get it to the same level. And I'm going to use my big brush for that. Okay. And I'm going to kind of ignore the houses and the lines that I put in to the reflection. I'm going to have to move this clip down here and put it down here. Nice little lavender going on there. Alright. Oh, it's got to be good and wet. What's going on? And then I stick this down on top of it. Move this a little bit. Extend my plastic wrap. I like using this with water because it just gives these really nice ripples. Just a little trick. I think working in mixed media, you're used to doing all that. I need a little more water down here. It's not going to work if it's dry. Okay. And you get those little pockets of water underneath there. Okay, so while that's doing its magic, I'm going to go back with my pencil now, and I'm actually going to draw in like doors and windows and things that I see in the photo. And I'm going to put them in very lightly. So there's a window here, and a window here, and a window there. And over here, and over here. So if you have a barn picture, anything that is more this scale where the buildings are not very detailed and well defined, you don't want something up close. And you're welcome to copy my picture. Okay, I think I've got a little bit of character. Maybe over here there's one little guy peeking in and another guy peeking in. Okay, all right. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is take my flat brush, a 1/2-inch flat brush, and I'm going to start filling in some of those trees. I'm going to take a little of the gamboge, the blue, some water. You can test it out on your napkin first if you're not really loving that. Okay. I'll just block in some of these. Trees. I added a little red to deepen it. I didn't want it to be so bright green right off the bat. But you might want areas of the bright green. I'm just kind of dabbing at it at this point. And there's one over here. Okay. I'm going to take my sponge or my napkin and lift some of it. I got it too close where I'm going to be putting the trunks of the trees. And there's a few toward the back of the houses. So they're back here. A little bit of red. Oh, that might be a little too much red. And we're gonna put some of that back in here. Now I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it right over that roof line. I'm really creating a silhouette so that the houses, all the man-made structures, are becoming the things that are in white. Oh, there's some peeking up behind here. I'm just going to take the corner of my brush, peek those little guys in there. Mine's painting's drying pretty quickly here in Arizona, so I'm not really having to blot very much, so be careful not to get too much water on your brush color if you're not going to want that, but you can't get it off. Okay, so now I've kind of got that midsection of trees going. And this is almost dry down here, and I'm going to be able to lift it in just a second. Yes. So let's go back and work then on the trees that are way far away in the distance. So I'm going to take my brush on its edge and just kind of dab at that. Like it's the kind of, you can see the base of the tree line. Far away. So this is putting a second coat of the same color on top, and it makes it darker. Now I'm creating depth. Doesn't have to be a straight line. Okay. Now, I want to go back and work on the beautiful mountain and deepen its color. I need to clean this tray just a tad because I got green into my sky and mountain color. So I'm going to put some blue here and the red back in here. My mountain color. I'm using my number 6 round now. And right along that edge, I'm going to put a deeper line. I'm really fond of this place. My mom introduced this place to me, and we used to vacation here a long time ago. Okay, now I'm going to take that same brush, really lighten up. I don't want to outline, but I want this very faint line right where my pencil line was. So you can see those mountains. Dabbing as I go. You can't take it away once it's dry. Like that little lab I had there of green. I can't do anything about that. I'm gonna have to make it into something. A happy accident. Put a little purple in with the green. Using the very tip of my 6. Really, it's so nice that you only need those 4 brushes really to start with. See, I'm gonna hide it right there. Like it's another little mountain or something coming in. Happy accidents. Okay, I'm going to go back to the little green and I'm going to march along, barely tapping and put in a tree line. Oh, I think that needs a tad of blue in it. Okay. Clean up the edge of that little house a little bit more. That's why I don't get too picky about my house structures, because if my line overflows, I can shore it up just a tad. Okay. Coming together. It's fun because you can travel with your watercolors this summer. They're not going to dry out. I'm just barely touching the canvas. If you don't hear me talking, it's really because I'm kind of in my right brain, just looking around where I want to add another layer of dark. Okay, I think I can take this part off now. Well, I've got a couple of really cool lines. I think if my water had been a little bit darker, it would have been fun. Alright, so I can take some of this green and just carry it into the water. It's a little more fuzzy, muted. Okay, so in order to come up with my little little cabins in the woods here, I think what I'll do is just use some burnt sienna and red, because we finished our silhouette, and I really want to keep the buildings light, because this is not going to be about the buildings, it's really about the background. So whatever I mix up is going to be very light and just work on shadowing. So I'm going to have a little of the burnt sienna, tiny bit of the crimson, it's a little pink, got something on the, gonna have to make a happy accident right there. Don't keep scrubbing on something or you will get a hole in that. Okay, so I'm gonna just go under the eaves, because I want to make this more of a silhouette. Maybe just around the windows a little bit on the darker side. Maybe it's really dark in the window. Blue to your brown and get a deeper brown. There's a little brown house way over here. Wet on wet, so I'm putting another layer. Just had a little bit more blue in the brown. Isn't it nice when you're only working with those few colors right now, till you get kind of a feel for what you can make with just those. It can be overwhelming at first when you've got all those colors and you don't know how they're going to react. So I really have this silhouette going on now of my town. I'm going to put a light wash on the roofs. Almost like they're kind of pasteled out. This one's got kind of a blue roof, but I'm just going to very lightly put that in. And then keeping that buildings very light, working on their roofs first, setting the tonal value. Okay, I'm going to wash in the buildings really lightly, the sides of the buildings. I don't leave anything white unless it is white. There's a big picture window right here. It has a little bit more purpley blue in it. Reflecting the sky. I wouldn't mind having that view. I'll wait for that to dry and put a line back in there. Let's see, there's another little roof right over here. And a little bit more yellowy building right there. And right here, and I'm going to blot it, yes. I'm definitely going to lighten it up. Now to put some more of that green in. close to the ground. And I could take my a little bit on there. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is start working on the shadows. Not shadows, reflections and things like that. After I put a little more green, yellow green. It's good to start with a very simple landscape. Little grass along the edge. Take this end, pull it up. While it's wet. You could use a toothpick or something too, a little metal paper clip. Just don't scratch your paper. This feels very serene to me. Still got it supported underneath here. Draw in the windows and reflection. on these things first. A little more fuzzy in the water, not as defined. Patience. That's what comes to mind. I'll put another layer down here. A little flat grassy meadow. Oh, right here under the bottom of the house. eaves. Now I can go darker in the window. So I hope you're having fun at this point. Coming back in and adding those little finishing touches. I'm just picking up some of the darker colors here. I have to wait for something to dry. I have to wait for that window to dry before I put another coat on it to make it even darker. See, yeah, just adding that little bit of another layer is starting to deepen. Yep, it's very calm. And it's okay if it flows in a different direction. Just blot it and come back to it later after that area dries. Okay, so what I need to do is put a little bit deeper color, just using some blue, brown, green, and some of my sienna. Along on the water's edge. You could take that make it as thin as you want. It's usually really dark where the water meets the ground. Make sure you go end to end. Just putting the rest of these roofs on. You can't take it away, so just take your time. Okay. Now I can take my rigger, which we haven't used yet. Where is my rigger? Hello, rigger. Where are you? It's hiding somewhere. That's got a really fine point. Dip it in the water. I'll put it into the sienna. I'm going to twirl it just a tad. Make sure it's good. You can test it over here on the side. I could have used that along the water's edge too. In fact, I think I will, just so that you can get a good feel for it. Now I'm going to go in between the trees. Keep some of those white lines for the aspen. This is your detail brush. little pops of blue-green. So it's really about the vegetation in this picture. Up a bit. Now I'm going to just come back ever so slightly. Put in some silver lining on those clouds. There we have lesson 2 all for you, ready to go. And we've got the reflection in. We used just those 4 colors, and it's all kind of a muted tone. It's kind of a gray day, and we were looking at this in particular. And we still have the houses mostly in silhouette. So come back for lesson 2, and we'll talk more about adding lots more color.